Think about the very first thing you do when you open your smartphone screen. Before you read a text, before you check the weather, before you even realize you are doing it, you glance at the dark, reflective glass. You check your hair. You look at your eyes. You make sure there isn't a smudge on your face. It is a tiny, almost invisible habit, repeated millions of times a day across the entire planet. We are entirely obsessed with our own reflections. Mirrors are everywhere. They line our bathrooms, our hallways, our cars, and the pockets of our trousers. We take them completely for granted. Now, strip them all away. Take away the glass, take away the polished metal, take away the smooth, calm surface of a deep forest pond on a windless day. Picture yourself living 40,000 years ago. You have a sharp mind, a complex language, and rich social bonds. You love, you fear, you dream, and you create breathtaking art on the dark stone walls of deep underground caves. You carve delicate ivory figurines of people and animals with astonishing skill. Yet, if you were to walk past you on a trail, you would have no concrete idea of what your own face actually looked like. For the vast majority of human history, seeing your own face was a rare, distorted, and almost magical event. Anthropologists and historians point out that before the invention of manufactured mirrors, human self-awareness was entirely internal. You knew your voice. You knew the weight of your hands, the ache in your muscles, and the feeling of the cold wind against your skin. You knew how other people reacted to you, but your own visual appearance was a ghost story. It was something you had to piece together from clues. So how did our ancient ancestors solve the oldest mystery of human identity? How did they figure out what they looked like long before anyone ever poured molten glass behind a sheet of silver? The first mirror nature ever gave us was not glass at all. It was water. But water is an imperfect storyteller. Walk down to a rocky riverbank or a fast-moving stream, and the surface is a chaotic jumble of ripples and light. If you crouch down and stare into a rushing current, your face breaks apart into shimmering fragments. Even the slightest breath of wind shatters the image instantly. To find a true reflection in nature, you needed something very specific. You needed absolute stillness. Archaeologists studying early human habitats note that people living near slow-moving wetlands, deep limestone sinkholes, or undisturbed desert pools would have occasionally stumbled upon near-perfect natural mirrors. Imagine stumbling through the damp brush of a prehistoric forest and suddenly coming across a hidden spring of dark, still water. You kneel down, cup your hands, and lean in. For a brief moment, the water settles. Out of the dark background, a face looks back at you. But there is a catch that modern people rarely consider. Natural water mirrors in the wild are almost never clear window panes. Because of dissolved minerals, tannins from fallen leaves, or fine silt suspended in the liquid, ancient water reflections were usually tinged with dark brown, deep green, or murky black. Your face would have appeared shadowy, ghostly, and swallowed by the dark depths below. Furthermore, reflection in water comes with a strange psychological quirk. It is upside down and backward, anchored to the ground beneath you. When you looked down into a prehistoric pool, you were looking away from your community, staring down into the earth rather than looking forward into the eyes of another human being. It was an isolating, solitary experience. Yet, humans are intensely social creatures, driven by an innate need to connect, recognize, and understand one another. If water was too fleeting, ancient craftspeople soon found a way to manufacture their own reflections out of the earth itself. Long before the invention of glass, brilliant artisans in the ancient world were grinding minerals into liquid glass-like perfection. At ancient sites dating back thousands of years in regions like modern-day Turkey and Central America, archaeologists have uncovered remarkable objects that completely change how we think about ancient vanity and technology. They found mirrors made of obsidian. Obsidian is a natural volcanic glass, smooth, dark, and sharp as a surgeon's blade. When ancient stone knappers carefully chipped, ground, and polished a flat slab of black obsidian using fine sand and water for hours on end, something extraordinary happened. The rough stone transformed. It became a dark, glossy disc that could capture light. Hold one of these ancient obsidian mirrors today, and the effect is haunting. It does not reflect a bright, crisp, clinical image like a modern bathroom mirror. Instead, your face emerges from a deep, velvety blackness. The edges blur, the skin tones soften into rich, metallic shadows. It looks less like a photograph and more like a charcoal drawing brought to life. Researchers experimenting with replicas of these ancient tools have discovered that polishing obsidian required incredible patience and specialized knowledge. It was not a casual invention. It was a deliberate technological leap born from the desire to look into the face of a stranger who happened to be oneself. But mirrors were not only used for vanity or checking one's appearance. In many ancient cultures, these dark reflective surfaces were viewed with a mixture of awe and deep suspicion. When you look into a polished piece of obsidian or a polished copper disc, you are staring into a void. Light goes in, bounces off a surface, and returns to your eyes, but the space behind the surface appears completely empty. To an ancient mind, that was not just physics, that was magic. Across various ancient traditions, polished stones and metals were believed to be portals. Shamans and tribal leaders used reflective surfaces to gaze into the spirit world, communicate with ancestors, or see events happening far away. The reflection of a human face was thought by some to hold a piece of the soul itself. If a mirror broke, it wasn't just bad luck because of the cost of the material. It was because a part of the person reflected within it had been fractured. This brings us to a fascinating realization about how ancient humans understood their own identities. Without mirrors dominating every room, people did not define themselves by their visual flaws, their hairstyles, or the symmetry of their facial features the way we do today. Your identity was rooted in your actions, your voice, your scars, your contributions to the group, and the way your family and friends smiled when you walked into the campfire's warm circle of light. When a Bronze Age warrior or a Neolithic farmer finally looked into a polished bronze mirror for the first time, it must have been a jarring psychological shock. They were suddenly forced to confront their exterior from an outside perspective. They were seeing themselves the way everyone else saw them, stripped of the internal feeling of being alive. Today, we carry high-definition cameras in our pockets, staring at our own faces on screens dozens of times a day, sometimes critiquing every microscopic detail. We live in a world saturated with our own likenesses. Yet, for tens of thousands of years, our ancestors walked the earth with giants' hearts and brilliant minds, carrying a rich, complete sense of who they were, entirely unaware of what their own nose, mouth, or eyes actually looked like to the rest of the world, save for the occasional glance into a dark, rippling pool or a polished stone from the earth.